Great. All right. I'll call this meeting to order. This is planning board, Thursday, August 10. First thing we do here is determine a quorum. We are missing one member today, but we have 3 people for a quorum. We're not going to be probably voting on anything that requires it tonight, though. Item 2 is adjustments to the agenda. Any adjustments from the board? Seeing none, let's move on. Item 3 is citizen comments. I assume everybody here is here for the application for the RV park, correct? If there's any other comments, now would be the time. Seeing a lot of people nodding, so we'll just move on. All right, item 4, pre-application. The applicant is online on Zoom here. Her name is Cheryl Moyer. The way this is going to work is Cheryl's going to introduce the project first. There'll be a period for comments afterwards. We'll ask that you don't crosstalk or interrupt the presentation as it's happening. Everyone will get their chance to talk. When it is your time to talk, please give your name so that Rebecca, who is doing the minutes for us, can get everybody attributed correctly. So, Cheryl, why don't you present your application for us?
Okay, so I don't have my application right in front of me, so I apologize. I'll try to go down through as I remember it on there. But with 220 Main Street, there's a 10.76 acre lot there that currently is a vacant lot and is looking to try to be able to put in a up to 40 site RV camp there for overnighters. And they said we may only do 20, even 30 sites, but everything would be up to the way the state regulations and everything else are on there. My understanding, we could only be able to come in through Main Street because there cannot be anything put on the highway side because there's not enough acceleration lane there. I would like to have 2 driveways in there, but I don't know if I could get to approval for 2 or not. If I can't get for 2, then I would have an entrance and an exit in the same driveway. Otherwise, I would like to have an entrance on one side and an exit on the other side, as I kind of tried to put dashes on the plan on there to represent that difference there. Currently, right now, the current owner is waiting on an appointment that's been set up previously to get a delineation done on it to find out where the wetlands are on the property. From what I understand is they may only be up in the northeast corner up there. Although there is some stuff on the plot map that looks like that there could be questionable something right in the middle of the property. If it is, then the whole plan would not go through anyways. And I would not purchase the property, but because I'm waiting to purchase this property till I hear if I could have this done or not, that is kind of where we were at as far as trying to find out on that. There's going to be a survey done on the lot because I understand there's another piece out of the lot as well that belongs to a grandson or something of the prior owner before the current owner. So we're just working all those things out, but we needed to meet with you guys to find out if it was even possible to put this campground on there, because I guess it's a business 2 section zoning instead of zone for what we're looking to do there.
Cheryl, do you run other campgrounds anywhere like this?
I run a campground in Adamsville, Tennessee.
Similar size?
Yeah, it's got 15 sites in it. And we're currently under a construction for another 20 site one right now.
I got a question, Cheryl. It may be kind of basic, but if you get your site, what is the infrastructure plan? I mean, do you have to get road, electricity, water, and that type of thing? Is there like a plan that goes along with it if you get accepted?
Yes. Right now I wasn't sure exactly how it's your guys's set up with the city pieces, if there's water or anything there available to there. My understanding right now is it may have to have a well put in, which would then require testing and everything else. If and a septic tank, and it would have to have 2 septic tanks put in to be able to manage that capacity. And typically, if you have to put anything different than that, then you have to get a contract with a person that does the septic pumping. So if you don't have city utilities, then that's what you have to do. We currently have the one that we have in Tennessee is set up on a septic tank, but it's on city water. And we have a whole separate system for it set up for their piece on there. And then of course, you know, any kind of refuge or any of that stuff, you have to get trash pickup and everything for that. And then according to the state, you have to have a bathhouse in there. So like a bathroom with a shower set up on that. So that would be in place combined with the office area so that it was in the same kind of building.
Are you gonna live there? Manage it, or are you gonna have a,
As a host, I would be there. I understand that would be like the weather only holds out for 6 to 8 months. I'd like to live there full time, but it is a business zone, so I didn't know if you guys would allow that. I would like to live there in my RV, quite honestly. Totally, that would be whether or not you guys would approve that or not. But definitely would have to have a camp host that would be able to stay on there so that people coming and going would be able to be taken in and directed where to go. So.
Max, I have a question more. Just dovetailing on Jeff's question. So that's zoned, it's a business zone, but so isn't an RV park a business?
So the way the zoning district is laid out is there's 2 different zones for Route 1. There's Route 1A and there's Route 1B. Route 1A is aimed for the more rural parts outside of the
Right.
corridor here.
Right.
And that does allow campgrounds, which is what I interpreted the ordinance to have this as. Route 1B, on the other hand, which is where this property is, does not allow campgrounds.
So the definition of the RV, you're making the distinction that that's a campground because it's an RV? I don't mean to take
So-
care, but I'm just wondering how
Right. So
the town comes to that conclusion.
in the definitions, page 15-6, the town has, I'll go with just campground right
Sure,
now, because they're
sure.
small and large as well. Any area or tract of land intended to accommodate 2 or more parties in temporary living quarters, including but not limited to tents, recreational vehicles, or other shelters. So, and keep in mind, that's my interpretation of it. Someone else can have a different interpretation of this and come to you and say, well, this is what I think it is, and then you decide whose interpretation is right. So that's how the whole thing started.
Right.
I was asked if this was allowed. I said, based on my interpretation, it's not, and you would have to amend the ordinance to allow it in that district. So the pre-application is to give you this concept idea to see if this is something you would want to recommend or not.
okay, I have a big spiel,
Yes.
because I went through the matrix. The matrix, when you go through Route 1A and Route 1B and go through all the things that are allowed, for the most part, they all share, except for a couple of things, they share the same
Yep.
possible businesses to happen. Where it differs is that in Zone B, which this property is at, it does not allow camping and tenting grounds, medical marijuana, or a methadone clinic. Camping and tenting grounds, and also the other thing about B is that our definitions say that we, wait, is it B? It's B, right? That she's
Yeah.
in?
Yeah.
She's in B.
Yes, this is being proposed in B.
Yeah, okay. The intention of commercial B is there to be fewer restrictions than A. That's what it says in the definitions.
Yep.
But so, but camping and tenting is definitely not allowed in B. The only other difference between commercial A and commercial B, you know, basically when you go through the matrix is setback requirements and the size of the lot. Cheryl, do you know what your road frontage is on this property?
On the highway side, it's got like 860, and on Main Street, it's 415.
Okay, so it kind of falls into a business commercial A lot size for road frontage for 400 feet. I guess my only point is, when I just kind of look at the town and generally, I mean, of course, there's tons of other issues here too about, you know, what the neighbors our expectations are for their area. But when you think about it, having, it's a wonderful thing for business in Waldeboro, because you have people coming in and then they're going to the restaurants, they're going to Moody's, they're going, you know, they're doing business in town. And then they're heading on to, you know, Mount Desert Island, I guess, or wherever they're going from there. But the impacts in the neighborhood are going to be, you know, late arrivals, early morning takeoffs, engines running, all that kind of stuff that makes it kind of busy certain months of the year. So that's the big impact. But in a lot of ways, in terms of just looking at the town and planning, what could be better than having it just pull right off of Route 1 and not trekking through town. And we may be able to, the exit road could have a, you know, right turn only for the people leaving, so they scooch right back to Route 1, not driving through town. I'm just saying that, you know, it's kind of an interesting business. The lot size is a nice size. We could stipulate a lot of buffers. And we could probably stipulate, well, when she comes up with a plan, we could see if 40 makes sense, maybe only 20 makes sense. But I totally get that it's you know, it's certainly going to be way busier than it has been to date, if that's an activity. So yeah, and Max, we would have to either change the ordinance by just exempting camping and tenting not being allowed in routes in commercial B in November, right? I mean, that's what we'd have to do. We would have to, if this were to go forward, it would have to be rewritten, and then the town would have to see to approve it.
And just so people are aware of how that process would go, the planning board could make a recommendation, and then the select board would have to vote in their August 22nd meeting to say, we want to put that on the warrant article for November.
Mhm.
And it would have to be this meeting and the next meeting, because I was told by the town clerk, August 30th is the deadline for putting things on the warrant. So if it's, just point that out for everyone, how the process works.
And, you know, I would think we could do some stipulations, you know, I'm just trying to be business friendly, you know, here is when people bring proposals. Would people not check in after 8 or 9 o'clock at night or that kind of thing? I mean, is that like an okay thing to have as a stipulation?
That would have to tie into some part in the ordinance. I think there's also some other ordinances we could look at as well for that type of stipulation, but
Well, when people come in front of us for, you know, mass event kind of things, we can do it specifically to a location. We don't include it in the overall.
The
Ordinance book.
ordinance, yeah, I mean, you could do it as a condition of approval.
Right.
Yeah.
For the final application.
Right.
I'm very business friendly too, but I'm also very neighborhood friendly. And, you know, sometimes those two butt heads, and sometimes there is a middle ground. But again, I think you got to thread the needle here. Does that part greatly change the character of that area or neighborhood? So I just,
Yes.
well, I'm just wondering, we can't change the law, I mean, the zoning, does that,
So
how
this
does that work, Max?
So that ties into some of the questions that Jeff was, he's one of the planning board members who couldn't be here tonight, but did have some questions about zoning. I mean, this is kind of that process there's few ways how the ordinance can always change. One of it is just when a comprehensive plan is done, you want to do that big overhaul and go through word by word. In other cases, it's someone will bring up an issue that is going on in town, or someone will have an issue with some language in the ordinance to say that doesn't make sense. Can we get that changed?
Right.
And then in May or so, when the Waldeboro Inn came in for their application, they said, you know, we have to do 5 rooms, but you're working on the ordinance right now. Can you change the definition to 8? And that was something that the board seemed fine with at the time, and so that was a change that was made. You don't have to change the ordinance at any time, really. I mean, we're doing it right now because of the state requirements for LD 2003. But you're under no obligation to make any recommendations to change the ordinance. And the select board would be in the same boat. They can just say, we're not gonna put this forward, and then unless it's a citizen's petition, then nothing will change. An ordinance change doesn't really happen unless someone brings attention to it.
I see, right,
And then you'd review it first, you'd give your thoughts, and then the select board would have one more say before the town as a whole votes on it. So anyone in this room right now will be voting on this if it goes on the November warrant.
I see. Okay, and that's a prolonged process, isn't it, or drawn out?
Well, it would be done in November.
Right.
If we made a recommendation to change it tonight,
Right.
the select board agreed, it would make it onto the warrant
Right.
when it goes out to the printer or whatever. And then,
Yeah.
November it would get changed.
Okay.
But the planning, but you guys could decide tonight, it's a big topic, we want to hold off. And then it wouldn't be on the November warrant. And then even if you made the recommendation, the select board could say the same exact thing. And decide not to put on the November warrant.
A question for you. Where does your zone A and everything, or do you have where the zones are? Because I've looked at other properties in that area too, and this is where I am looking, but I didn't know you allowed it in the 1A area. Is there something you could send me, Max, that has where your 1A and your 1B?
Yes, I can
Okay.
send you the zoning map.
Isn't it on
Because
the,
that would help a lot too.
Yeah, and I can send the link for that. And if it's not, then I'll
Okay.
upload it.
Yeah, because I'm not necessarily stuck on this piece of property. It was just that one happened to be there and it was showing that it was business zoning and it looked like it was a nice area that would not impact people getting on and off a highway for RVs and stuff. And that's why I proceeded to talk to the owner about it and make an offer to them. And then when we started finding more information out, then we put that on hold until we followed up with you guys. So I've definitely found some other nice places there as well. So unfortunately, they're not quite as big a size property.
is in running a campground, is that things like having a cutoff time for arrivals and stuff done? Or is that not considered a good way to run the business?
Oh, no, actually, there's lots of them that do it that way, actually, because people don't like people coming in the middle of the night. Our current one, we've only ever had it occur a couple of times, but that's because the people got their late start and they no way could hit town before that was, and so we made an exception. But typically, there are ones that have, no, you're not coming anytime after such and such time. And that can certainly be done. Because I understand that, because I wouldn't want to be woke up. I go to bed at 9 o'clock at night. I get it.
If I ask questions as well.
Yeah, please.
So Cheryl, I also sent you the specific standards for campground. Did you get a chance to look at that?
Yes,
Were
yes,
there
I
any-
reviewed.
For all those standards that you saw, were any of them a concern, so that if the zoning did change, would you be able to satisfy all those standards?
Yes, oh yes. We currently do all those standards already where we're at. I mean,
And
we always strove anything we've done that way to make sure that we were met or exceeded what was needed. And I don't see, there was none of them that was on there that was really too difficult to do. For a small campground, putting in a bathhouse and stuff's kind of a pain in the rear end, but that was my only one, because it was like they've got baths in their RVs. And it's kind of a big expense if you go under 40 sites. So, like I said, where we're at 15 sites, we don't have that. So like, if we were 20 or sites or something, that's a state issue, not your issue.
And for people who are here today or listening from home, if you're curious about what standards I'm talking about, you can find them on page 10-4 of the Waldeboro Land Use Ordinance, and it goes over, in addition to the standards, general, environmental, and parking. These are requirements specifically for campground tent sites, so site layouts being properly screened so that none are within view of public roads and existing residences, density requirements, vehicle separations, so that they're not parked so close together, parking being far away from the road, and then picnic tables, sewer and water or septic systems, fire extinguishers, fireplaces. All those standards can be found online in case people are curious about those.
Should we review the questions from Jeff?
Yeah, most of Jeff's questions seem to be zoning questions, but I don't mind going through those if you'd like.
Okay, yeah, then
Can I just ask a question?
Yep.
So what we are contemplating is just changing a line out of removing something that's right now says can't be in B, so that all the way through B, then now campgrounds are allowed, or are we changing A to zip down into this piece of property to jump the highway?
Either option is acceptable.
oh,
You can do a zoning change, just put that into
This
A.
isn't big enough for you guys. Do you guys want to see this?
I can also get the one that I have in it's a blown up map that I can get if people would
It's
like.
kind of interesting. So I wrote, the yellow is A and B is where you guys are. It's on that street somewhere. Just for you.
I can get the blown up map if people would prefer that. You can do either option where you're changing the zoning district itself so that this place would be A instead of B. Or you could change the matrix to just put PB for campgrounds in 1B.
Max, aren't we getting the cart before the horse here? I'd like to listen to the citizens and their comments and the abutters.
Okay.
Before the discussion of this, that, whatever. I mean, we haven't even heard from. them.
Right.
That's what I'm holding on for.
Do you want me to still go through Jeff's questions first?
I'm not.
let's go through Jeff's stuff and then we'll open it up.
They seem to be focused on the map right now. So just roughly what Jeff was asking, what makes the town choose to divide zones the way they are currently done? The districts were done back in 2005. I can't tell you what logic was made back then. I think a lot of it was just based on what existing uses were there at the time. We generally base our, and I'm going to try and be a bit more snippy with these questions because some of them are a bit long. We generally base these decisions to alter zoning simply on request from people looking to use property so that it's fit in the correct zone. As I said earlier, it's how you guys get these requests. You might have a random resident here who's saying they just don't like standard A and this page, that page, and you can get rid of it. That's what the Waldeboroian said. They said, can you please change the definition so we can have more in the future if we want to expand? And then there's LD 2003 state mandate requirements. So the decision is strictly up to you, the board, on how you do want to make those changes.
Or put it before the select board in the town.
Right,
And yeah, we don't make the decision. We just.
right. You make the
We make the
recommendation to
Just
make the
write the
change.
draft.
Right. What is the precedent for making alterations this way? Again, Waldeboro Inn would probably be the most recent example I can give. It was just changing the definition. I think we did some other changes in June as well for changing like what certain authority had to approve certain districts. I can't remember how the matrix was changed, but we did make some changes there. Does this create some potential flip-flop for zoning? Saying something is prohibited but now allows it doesn't do too much of a negative effect. I mean, residential use, for example, was something that used to always be prohibited on Route 1. Believe that or not. We just changed that in 2020, so someone can do a single family home on Route 1 I haven't seen any negative effect. But if we're doing it the opposite way, where we're removing something as an allowed use, it just creates the lot as a non-conforming use, and it'll just either be a successful business that lasts forever, or it will naturally fade away and then the use is just not there anymore.
Mhm.
So it has natural ways of doing this. And then Jeff's main question is, what real basis is there for zoning change other than the idea of a potential buyer? Who thinks it would be good to have it there? The
Well,
base,
sometimes ideas evolve.
Yeah.
The things that we didn't think of 10 years ago are happening and, can't be too, you have to rethink things through sometimes.
that's actually what I was gonna say.
Been hanging out too long.
It's interesting that in the definition of the Route 1B zone,
Hmm.
it says that the intent is to be less restrictive,
Mhm.
and yet it has fewer allowable uses than the other zone does. So like we've had this question a couple of different times where we talk about what was the original intent in creating the zoning rule this way? And this is the only time that we've asked that question where we actually have a piece of, we have a document that actually tells us what the intent was for creating that zone in the first place. So, we're gonna make this recommendation on a case by case basis, just like we do every other time, I think that having the intent to have a looser set of regulations for that district is a useful piece of information. But I think that we can discuss it and make a decision tonight and make a recommendation one way or the other. I don't have any more questions. Does anyone on the board have any more questions about this?
Mm-mm.
All right, then let's open this up for citizen comments. If you would, just give your name before you make your comments and speak up so everybody can hear you.
Do we need the larger map or not? You guys
Do people
agree?
want me to get the large zoning map or?
I don't care. They get a small map right here that I can look at, it's just fine.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Oh,
My name's Jesse Groth Kennard. I'm the Button landowner. And on her proposal down here, she's written undeeded private property to grandson, which that's my deeded property. The 3 acres there. I personally don't live there. I live about 100 yards down the road at 319 West Main Street. But all the neighbors there are retired or elderly, and we don't make noise out there, and we don't do anything loud out there. Come 8 o'clock at night, it's shut down quiet, and you could sleep on your lawn if you wanted to. That's how quiet the neighborhood is. So to bring in people that are planning on staying up, camping all night would kind of be disrespectful to them, more or less not me, because I live down the road further, but my daughter could possibly build a house on my piece of land eventually, and she would have to, deal with that, but the lot looks a lot bigger than it really is, because there's a lot of wetland there. I mean, my family's owned that land my whole life, and my great grandfather had it way back in the day, so there's only a little piece of the dry field left. I own probably 3/4 to 80% of the actual field that's there. This small tip of the field is all that's, hers right beside the wetland. So if she did anything there, then this is the neighbor that lives in this house, would be able to visibly see the lots. So I don't see how they're gonna squeeze it in there and not have them visible. And these people right here just built a new house. So they have them on their back lawn. I don't know their names. I tried stopping in to see if they wanted to come down, but nobody answered the door.
Are you saying that this is not 10 acres?
I don't know.
This is
This is
minus this?
Yes,
This is not
this-
10 acres?
right. If you go look at your property map,
Mhm.
14C puts a line right up there
I
like
see.
this.
Okay.
This is my 3-acre lot.
I see, okay.
But where she wrote down.
Yeah.
The
She still has 10 acres.
right, she has 10.7
Yeah.
something,
Okay.
so that would be the
I see.
line she put here would be.
Yeah.
It's kind of deceiving by this, because it would my property line's up to the field, so she's really only got a little piece of that field right there.
Okay.
That's all I really have to say. Thank you for your time.
Thanks. Please.
Hi, Gail Henry, 288 West Main Street. I have a number of questions and issues. I can go through them if that's okay, if we're allowed to have
Please.
multiple questions. Okay, I would like to get a definition of what an RV is, what constitutes an RV, the scope. Is it anything like a temporary pop-up camper, you know, with a canvas top? Is it a structure that's completely made out of metal or vinyl or something? You know, is it a tent? You know, like what is the definition? Because 40 sites of an RV, that's a lot of vehicles on a property. And in addition to the RV, of course, there's awnings, there are screen houses, there are fire pits, there are all sorts of recreational type things that can be appended onto an RV. So I'm interested to know what the plan would be. What RVs would be allowed? Would tent camping be allowed? And what additional features would be allowed? So that really 40 is, you know, I think unrealistic for this type of a project. I don't know if you want to ask the applicant to define the RV.
We actually have a definition for an RV in the land use ordinance on page 15-23.
Want to read it?
Sure. Recreational vehicle is a vehicle or an attachment to a vehicle designed to be towed or self-propelled and designed for temporary sleeping or living quarters for one or more persons, and which may include a pickup camper, travel trailer, tent trailer, camp trailer, and motorhome. In order to be considered as a vehicle and not a structure, the unit must remain with its tires on the ground. It must be registered at the State Division of Motor Vehicles to meet the following: 1, built on a single chassis; 2, 400 square feet or less when measured at the largest horizontal projection, not including slide outs; designed to be self-propelled or permanently towable by a motor vehicle; and designed primarily not for use as a permanent dwelling, but as temporary living quarters for recreational, camping, travel, or seasonal use.
So not a motorhome, not a self-driving.
Oh, no, it definitely includes a self,
Okay,
RV with an engine in it. Yeah.
Self-propelled.
But it also would include a truck with a camper trailer on the back.
Should we let Cheryl answer what the parameters of her campground are? She's thinking at this point. Does that make sense?
Well, actually, what he read was pretty much what we were thinking. That particular piece of property would not lend itself to tenting for camping wise, because it just wouldn't be fun for the tenters, quite honestly. So yeah, it would only be for what you have in your definition there as far as what designates an RV.
Thanks.
Gail, can I just interrupt? I'm sorry, but are you kind of just think it will change the entire character of the neighborhood, or are you concerned more of the number? Like, I'm just gonna throw, would you say they just could have it limited to 20 or something versus
no,
40?
I'm opposed to changing the zoning to allow a campground,
I see, okay,
period.
okay.
Okay, but 40 just seems even beyond the pale as far as trying to jam in 40 vehicles
Right.
at one time in that area. It would be accompanying, you know, I don't know if there's going to be septic discharge. I don't know if there's going to be security on site. There's a lot of people that can fit into an RV, you know, people on vacation. So an RV could probably fit 8 people. And so 40 RVs times 8 people is over 300 people. So who's going to manage that? To me, it's like, you know, having 40 apartments built there because people are going to be living there. And, you know, I don't know if there's going to be a limit on how long people can stay. Can they stay the whole season? Can they stay by the night, by the week? Do they have to, can they stay and then leave for a day and come back and start the clock over again? You know, those are, you know, And is it seasonal or is, Cheryl seemed to say that she would like to live there year round, and I think most campgrounds in Maine can't sustain water for the winter months. But I certainly wouldn't support anything in the winter or the summer. I'm just not in favor of that. So I guess I would like to ask, is it seasonal or is it going to be year round?
The campground itself would be seasonal. I just said I personally myself would like to stay on the property there year round, but I don't have to do that either. I can come back to Tennessee. So
Those of us who live there can't go to Tennessee, so that's what we're concerned.
right. No, I understand
Unless
that.
you have a big
No.
guest room.
And as far as with the 10 acres and saying 40 sites, I mean, we make where our campsites, I mean, they're 60 foot long and they're 14 feet wide with 14 feet in between each site. I mean, so you're talking 30 feet a piece that's out there for lengthwise. I mean, widthwise, 60 feet lengthwise for every site. I mean, so they're not sitting there. I mean, I've seen campgrounds where they've actually literally almost piled them on top of each other. I will not do that. That's not acceptable to me. And I know there's even ones there in Maine that are like that I've seen. So I mean, just go take a look down there in your Portland that's got 750 sites in a campground down there. I don't know how many acres it sits on, but it's 750 sites. I mean, that's a lot of sites.
So what is the plan for septic for these 40, potentially 40 RVs? Is there going to be waste discharge on site?
Well, there would be the septics and there would be all set up for the sewer system. And the tanks would be able to accommodate. And like I said, if necessary, then it comes down to having a contract with a person that does septic pumping.
Well, I mean, as far as we on West Main or Maine, we don't have sewers, right? It's all private septic systems and wells in that area. So I don't believe you can plan to tie into any sort of town water or sewer.
Well, no, and that's what I said. If you have the septic system, you actually contract with a septic sewer pumper guy. I don't know his technical name, but that's what we have to do here in Tennessee.
That's
we
very
have to say-
costly. That's very, very costly, just to let you know. And I mean, would that have to be done on a daily basis?
No, actually septics don't fill up that fast.
Well,
You can do them on quarterly basis. It just depends on how much you're using it. Not every RV uses them either. I mean, so, it all goes on how often they're using, and they might dump at your site and they may not do it until 10 sites down the way, whatever their system fills up. So you never know what somebody's going to use, but what you put it on was a regular contract with a septic pumper system people. And they check your tanks and they do it on a routine, regular basis.
right, but for
Yes.
capacity planning, you have to plan for 40 people, 40 sites with, 8 people showering, using the toilet, washing, those type of things. You can't say they're probably not going to use that much. So
Right. No, you have to plan
Capacity planning.
accordingly.
right, so that's
And I'll take it to your system that's down the road down there, which is the first place we looked at, and then it flooded out. It was only 5 acres and it had 2 septic systems set up on it already, and they were accommodating 30 people.
30 people,
Yes, ma'am.
30 sites or 30 people?
Well, 30 people, I think is what had it's your daycare that's down there.
Couple sites.
So that would be all taken care of by a septic engineer, designer, depending on.
Yes,
It would be.
that's beyond my pay grade.
Proceed until it met, requirements. So that's kind of a detail at this point. What we need to figure out is this something that is everybody else, I guess, is opposed to the change?
Yeah.
That's here. Opposed. is it this, I'm curious, is it the specific site or is it the idea in general anywhere in
This is a
Waldorf?
specific site.
Specific site.
I mean, there's really only about 8, what she's looking at is 10+ acres, there's really only about 8 acres of usable land
Right.
with the small plant there.
And she might only have to do, only be able to do 12 sites, you know, you won't know that till you
Right.
lay it out. But, so is it, I'm just curious, so is it, because it's kind of convenient that it's near Route 1. So if it happened anywhere else along Route 1, would you guys come to the meeting and protest?
I would.
Okay.
I
And why?
personally,
Tell
this
me.
is beside my house and my land, where it's bothering me personally, that's why I'm here. You know,
That makes sense.
My name's Doreen McNally and I live at 274 West Main Street,
Mhm.
my husband and I.
Okay.
There are a lot of kids up there, grandchildren, that are playing or going back and forth on Main Street. The cars now and the trucks that go, the kids that go up through there, they're not 45 miles an hour.
Mhm.
And that's bad enough. And then you've got tractor trailers coming in from Route 1, going down to Taylor's Corner and wherever down that way. And they're going a little too fast also. But,
Mhm.
I mean, you've got a lot of kids that play up there too.
Yep.
I'm Robert McNally, I live 274. I'm concerned that you can bring in these pop-up tent trailers. What's to say they're gonna stay all year? What's the noise? And who's gonna be there to shut it down? They're gonna have rules like some others that you get one warning and next warning, your history, and you don't come back. Is that gonna be written in? Is that gonna be done? I don't like it, period, there. I think it's very, for the money she's gonna put into it. I don't think she's gonna get the money back.
I just also would just like to address, like, from a fire department perspective. Are these RVs going to have propane tanks on them? Are there gonna be fire pits? Is there security there that's going to make sure that there aren't fires, breaking out, or just a safe environment, for the campers as well as the neighbors?
Cheryl, do you have a plan, in your other site, is there generally speaking any security that is actually on site to maybe address an unruly occupant or any safety concerns? Is that generally, how is that?
Yes. Yes, there's somebody who goes through the park after hours to make sure that there's no noise levels out there and going on. If they are, they're addressing that. Safety wise, that really hasn't come up with the propane tanks or anything that way, but yes, all RVs have propane tanks on them. That's how they do when they're off grid and stuff like that. We have a fire hydrant that's right out front that city actually was nice enough. They were putting them down the line and we just happened to be able to be right here and they put one right in front of our site. So it worked out really well. So that as far as if there is a fire, the hydrant's right there. There's fire extinguishers around because it's mandatory for them to be around. You also have to have a landline that's put in, and according to your main regulations, if you look that up, what Max has there, he sent it to me as well. It does have the stipulations on there because they do have to have a fire pit available. That's not something we actually have to have required in Tennessee. So we have one big fire pit and that's all they're allowed to burn in so that it can be watched. I would much prefer that myself than several little fire pits, quite honestly, but state of Maine says you have to have one for every campsite. That is one I don't really care for in your regulations there because of safety wise, but we've got a lot of trees around us as you all do. And that is of great concern that way, because I don't want any fires ever starting.
You have a
But
question?
oh, sorry.
Well, I have a few things to say. This doesn't affect me up on the hill, but it affects me as a resident of the town of Waldeboro. My name is Monica Luce. We do have Moody's Cabins. We also have Duck Puddle Campground. My uncle is security at Duck Puddle. And they all have fire pits. They all burn their garbage. They all burn all kinds of things. So I'm thinking, you know, it's definitely gonna ruin quality of air here. Also at Duck Puddle, they have all year long, a lot of residents keep their campers there, like a little home set up for every summer, and they pay a lot rent through the winter to store them. They don't use them year round, of course, but they do store them there, and it looks like a little village when you go down through Duck Puddle. They're kind of off the road and they're near a lake. And I don't know why, Miss Cheryl, you chose Waldeboro, but what anemones would your campground bring to our small town? You drive through Waldeboro and you get to the top of the hill, and that's home when you look down. That's small town feel. You go putting in a campsite on Route 1 there, or even on the back road where my grandchildren live. That's scary thinking a 40-foot RV would come out on that side of the road. It's also scary to think that an RV would be pulling out on Route 1 on that hill. That hill's slippery, especially when it rains or in the winter. Not that you'd all be pulling out of there in the winter, but I just think it would cause a hazard with oncoming traffic, with traffic coming out of that side. It also takes away from the small town feel. I live on 10 acres. Once you clear a spot for those 40 RVs or even 20 RVs, you're going to start seeing through those trees into that property when you come down over that hill. And if you don't have a certain year RV or, you know, whatever, we're going to look at that when we come through town. And I don't think that's what our town's about. But can I ask you why you chose Waldeboro? Was it just because of the business Route 1 site, or do you have a tie or a love for this town?
Well, actually, I love down in your Friendship town down there. And actually, that was my first choice area down there, is in Friendship, not so much as up in the Waldeboro. Up through Waldeboro, though, because it does have the Route 1 was the big thing. But with talking to your MDOT and everything, that's why it can't not have a exit onto Route 1 out there, is because that it does not have a 950-foot acceleration area. It only has 860. So that is actually why it can't be there that way. But then we were looking for like the exposure where you could actually put a sign up so that you're seen. That's one thing that we know where we're at. We're off the main road where our current site is. And it's harder for people to find and to locate. And you tried to explain to them all the landmarks and they still miss it, and GPS don't always take people places. So that was kind of what went into looking at that location farther there. Actually, it was kind of a second choice versus a first choice for sure. But hearing all the concerns you guys have and everything that way, you've brought up some additional things that I personally had not thought of, and I'm taking notes on all these things. But I think you've given me enough information, especially I think he said his name was it Jason or whatever the grandson's name was there. I apologize, I didn't get it right.
Justin.
He gave me a lot of insight because I've been asking these different questions and not having that information yet. And so actually, I think I'm probably going to withdraw my whole plan for that particular site right there, because I don't think that it sounds like it's a good fit for your little community there. And I want it to be a good fit. Where we've got our current one is a small town feel. I live in a population of 1,975. And so I get the small town pieces. I've also lived in big towns. And so I understand the differences, and that's what we aim to keep, is a small town feel with where it makes the people that are camping feel welcomed, as well as the community. We asked all our neighbors before we ever put in a campground and got everybody's consent. And so I would want everybody to feel comfortable with that wherever this site ends up But it will end up somewhere between Rockland and Damascotta, because those are the areas I fell in love with when I was up there. But I do appreciate everybody's time.
I don't oppose her project in our town, just this location I oppose, you know what? I'd be all for her campground in a different location, you know, but just this location is not the one for me, you know. Not against her business plan or her idea by any means, just the location she chose. So,
I have a question about septics. Are septics for RV campgrounds the same as a residential? Do you have to have a leach field? And you have to own 2.3 acres for each thing? How does that work? How many RVs can you set up on one septic?
Well, it's like designing for a commercial building. There's just whole different rules about sizes, how it's laid out.
There's only a number of ways to solve the problem. You know, an engineer would be hired to determine what's required, if the soil can even support having a septic. And then the limitations of your site would sort of dictate how it gets designed. It could be done in the large way where you've got a bunch of sand and stone and pipes out there, or you can do you know, a more engineered system where you've got infiltration chambers and that takes up less room. Like there's lots of different ways to do it, just like there's lots of different ways to build a house.
I don't know about this side of the road, but on the other side of Route 1, isn't there a lot of ledge? And I'm wondering if that ledge runs straight through to the other side, which would make it harder for even septic systems to go through. Be great for a well.
The not to get off in the weeds for too long here, but the bacterial action that actually does the work in your leach field all happens within a really short depth of soil. So you don't need feet of uninterrupted soil. You can scrape the ledge off and put sand right on top of the ledge and build your septic on top of that. It's
Where
not,
does that run off?
it runs off into the ground, but it gets treated within the field and is not going to pose a risk to your wells in the surrounding area.
But
That's
could it cause erosion
no.
where it's on like a slope? Would that
Again,
run down?
I'm not designing the septic system for this. Like the engineers would look at the site specifics and design a system that works for it. And that, you know, then it gets approved and it gets built. You know, it's there's many different ways to do it. It sounds like it's a problematic site though, between the wetlands and trying to conserve enough area to actually have the RV park. Like your available area keeps getting smaller and smaller as we're having this conversation here. And I think that's why Cheryl is probably thinking that a different site makes more sense for her project at this point.
Yeah, Miss Cheryl, I'm with Jesse. I'm not against your project. I think that's a poor location. And here in Waldoboro, Novaboro, Damascotta, Rockland area, we have great signs that you can get anywhere from here. And most locals will point you that way. But I just don't think once you cleared space for the sites, I'm a little afraid that you would see through from Route 1 as well as the other side. And I don't think people coming through town are really gonna want to see that. And I'm worried about camp sites, period. I mean, Duck Puddle's an example, not that I don't love Duck Puddle, but we have people over there that have gardens growing, flower gardens. We have, you know, RVs that look like your little tiny homes. And I mean, it's a great little place to hang out, but it's not something we want to see on Route 1. They're well off the road.
I've been to your duck puddle. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, my Uncle Warren's caretaker there, so I'm fully aware of it. And like I said, not against it, maybe down the road somewhere further or something, but I can't promise you I won't have a problem with it then either.
That's okay. Like I said, you guys gave a lot of good insight and I appreciate all the time. And our intent is not to make anybody uncomfortable or anybody unhappy. It's to be able to bring together the community and bring together campers that want to go out and have a enjoyable break from regular life.
Yeah.
Not to party, not to sit there and make all
Well,
kinds
you
of
can't
noise,
stop
because
You can't stop
you
that. That's
can't, but you can keep it,
campground.
you can keep it down, and you can have, say, an after
we
10
have
o'clock at night, and,
Don't we have
oh,
a-
yes, we've had to do that.
Yes.
What time's that?
Too early. I forget what it is. What's the noise ordinance? 10
Uh,
o'clock or something?
Yeah, it's on the Waldeboro website.
I may be wrong, but I think it's 9 o'clock.
Before it's down to whatever time your neighbor calls the cops on
Right.
Yeah, he's got a point there.
it. Pretty much how it was.
I don't know it off the top of my head. You got one more hand in the audience.
Oh, yeah, please.
Hey, my name is Ron Davis. I'm a resident of Waldeboro. Probably the only one in this entire room that is in favor of this, and there's many reasons that I am in favor of it. It's only fair to me to say I'm the owner of the property there, so I think you should know that, but that really is not the main reason that I'm in favor of this project. It's a shame that it seems as though the picture of RVers that have been presented here tonight are really not what RVing is about. I RV'd for many years, thousands of miles, went in all kinds of campsites. You can't compare what Cheryl is talking about compared to some of the other campgrounds around here. There's no comparison. It's not a long-term thing. You don't plant gardens. Most RV parks that I've been in, 9 o'clock at night, it is dead. People have traveled long distances to get there. Very organized, very respectable people. So the picture that's been painted here tonight of RV is not really what they are about. And certainly Cheryl, she's been doing this with their other campground. Most of the concerns here tonight are taken care of by regulations. Either stipulated by planning board, stipulated by protected areas, so you don't see from one side to the other. That's a very heavily watered area. Septic things are not an issue. They're all controlled as to what you can do there. It's just a shame, because I think there's an opportunity for this community, which struggles with financial budgets and everything else in this town. And this is an opportunity to bring a new business into town. And I'm talking from a taxpayer's point of view now, not from a landowner's point of view. I know this town struggles financially. There's a lot of need in this town. And I think that if you look at the overall picture as to what this campground could bring to the community relative to other businesses. We're talking about RVers. What do? They come to an area where they stop, they go shopping, we got antifreeze, they fuel up on their gas. A lot of RVs take 100 gallons, 200 gallons of gas or fuel. They use restaurants. It's very hard for a community to increase revenue. And this is a struggle in this town. So increasing revenue, what do? You raise taxes. That's not very popular. So this is an opportunity to increase revenue by influx of business into the community. Your tax base, now it's about $1,000 a year for the taxes on that property. Could be 2, 3, 4 times that. That's a lot of revenue. $4,000 compared to $1,000. It's a lot of revenue in this town. And what they would be using. So as far as other businesses go, and we would hope one of them would be the thrift shop that we started across from Moody's. My wife and I started a nonprofit in this town, and that thrift shop supports Madomic Exchange. All the profits go to that Madomic Exchange. We 100% house the food pantry, we're 100% house the pre-clothes closet. This is from a business point of view. In the first year and a half of that clothes closet, 10,000 people went through that door. It could be a woman with 3 children, they're all counted. 10,000 people. So from a business point of view, we hope that some of these people would visit places like our thrift shop, who helps support the needs of this town. We've only lived here like 10 years, and it didn't take us long to realize the needs in this community. And to me, it's an opportunity. Apparently it is gone by the boards. I understand Cheryl's position as far as wanting to be a good business in town. But as far as the comment of why Waldeboro is perfect. You got Rockland, a beautiful harbor. You got Booth Bay Harbor. It's a perfect place for people to stop. And these aren't young folks that are staying up all night drinking. These are most of them retired people because they can afford the time, they can afford the RVs. They're very respectable people. And it's just a bad picture of what they painted for RV users. And the comment was, well, yeah, I'm in favor, but some other location. Well, most objections of things like this in any community is, I don't want it in my backyard, but it's okay if it's in my neighbor's backyard. Which, you know, isn't quite fair. And I just can't envision going down Route 1 and seeing a big open area with all those trees. I don't think it would be detrimental to the neighborhood. It's and many RV sites, you gotta go 2 or 3 miles off the road to find a place to stay. This is easy on, easy off. It's right there on Route 1. Very respectable people that are coming to use that campsite. And it's a shame that, because I don't want it in my backyard, that we miss an opportunity financially to do something for Waldeboro. And people in the RV world, they talk to other RVs and say, oh, that's a great place to stop because, you know, we can go to Hampton, we can go to Rockland or whatever. These aren't people that go and stay for months on time at a time, and they're not people who leave their units there. I mean, that can be a legitimate thing. You just don't allow them. That's up to you folks. You can't stay there after, who knows, whatever time of year. You cannot leave a camper there. So it's really a shame that it's so much controversy, and a lot of it is really not legitimate when you paint the picture of people who use those kind of facilities. So I think it's a shame for the business community, because I think Waldeboro has a lot to offer that like someone said, oh, they drive right through Waldeboro. Well, that's true. It's too bad they don't stop and visit our town and see what Waldeboro is about. So I think in almost any kind of business, if you're gonna really be objectionable and not pro-business, Waldeboro is gonna be stagnant. You're gonna be, your taxes, they're gonna go up because everything goes up. Instead of stabilizing our tax base by really encouraging business, helping business, help them through the process like Cheryl's trying to do here. And it sounds like that they're very used to doing, you know, in their other business. They know what is required. They know taking the precautions. There is the stipulation on entrance on Route 1. You can't do that for that type of business. And so the safety thing is not a huge factor. And this is relatively close to where you get off of Route 1. So that's the way they're gonna go back. So what is it, a quarter of a mile or even maybe less than that? And they're right back out on Route 1 again. They're not going with their RVs, they're not going down that hill or whatever. So it's a shame. I think that, you know, for what we're doing with a nonprofit in this town, we are really committed to this town, and I just hate to see an opportunity go by the boards.
I got a quick question for you. You're an RVer, obviously. So you're saying that the actual location is an excellent location for people with
It's
RVs?
it's a perfect
Is
location.
it just the
We have
proximity?
gotten off, we don't RV anymore, because, you know, when we were younger. But, like I said, you sometimes have to travel 3 or 4 miles to get to a site.
Right,
Some are closer, but, you know, it's, not, they're usually filled. It's usually hard to get in or make, you know, accommodations ahead of time. But it's a absolutely perfect location. If I was driving from Massachusetts or up to Canada, I would love to stop in a place like that, that you're, what, a minute and a half off of a main highway, and you get good facilities around town and places to, restaurants to use and things like that. I would love to have seen like.
and I was very interested, which caught me completely by surprise, but there must be some metric as far as the RV, how much money that group spends in any given location.
Well, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. But it employs people. Just think of when they, what it would mean to the area to develop that site and do it correctly. The contractors, you know, you got a year's worth of work of site people. You know, the concerns about wells, well, you know, most of the town is on wells and septic systems and, before we bought that property, this was some concerns about, wetlands and that, which I think is not really an issue. There is a portion of that, probably an acre of, water that's standing water. There's no question about that. But the rest of it is relatively dry. You go in there after all these rains, you don't see water, sitting around in there. But it's a perfect location. Like I say, no one seems to want anything that's controversial in their backyard, but it's fine if it's down the street.
Mr. Davis, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
You said that, you know, the RVers don't do that and they're not a rowdy bunch and anything. Are you gonna screen these people coming into our town? And you can't really discriminate. So you can't tell who can and cannot go into that RV site, right?
See, right now, you're painting that bad picture again.
Can I tell
You
you
are
why?
not a typical RVs that you're talking about.
So
No, a typical RV.
Yeah, because I've stayed in hundreds of campsites.
Well, I have too, but they're not all the same and you can't screen everybody coming in.
No, but
So-
The border question.
Yeah.
percentage
yeah,
are very respectable people.
Sure.
sorry for stepping in there, Brendan.
Please.
I was going to say Cheryl said a while ago that she is potentially going to be withdrawing her application. If I heard that correctly. I don't know how much further the board would like to continue on the pre-application note. Everyone here did get to speak their piece. I don't know how much we still have to talk about some ordinance changes and
Yeah.
usually we like to get out of here by 8 or else we get very cranky. So I don't want to speak for the board. Do you want to continue the discussion? Do you want to open up for more comments?
I have a question for Cheryl. Stop me if you've already made up your mind about not using this site, but I would think that, given what's going on and that you're actually, you know, there are a number of houses right nearby that first quarter mile to get to their homes, and that I would certainly, one of my concerns would be make sure that if this project were to go through, there'd be plenty of screening around the property edges. But that being said, and everything else going on with, you know, your 30 by 60 spaces per thing, do you have a minimum number in mind of like a minimum number of campsites in order to make this a go? I mean, does it?
Well, in order to make it a go, it would have to be the 20 sites or it's not, it's gets starting to be cost prohibitive beyond that, if you're under that. Because you got a lot of investments that you're putting in there. And yes, state of Maine requires that you have screening, whether it be by the trees or whether it be a fence line or whatever kind of screening you can have to where it's not sitting there being visible and to people that way. I mean, that's a requirement. So
Yeah, I'm torn because I totally get the business end of it. The proximity to Route 1 is wonderful, but obviously there's repercussions.
Is there zoning issues?
Just to repeat so the whole reason the pre-application is happening tonight is because the planning board isn't saying, yes, this can be here or not. The planning board would, if the planning board would want to see this go forward, make a recommendation to the select board to then put a town meeting question out there of updating the ordinance so that this could be allowed there.
Would that be voted on by the town?
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
and it would, and it would be in November.
You only got 6 people here.
But and that would be a question, and the select board will hold a public hearing on it, and that's. The planning board may choose not to do a recommendation, the planning board could do a recommendation, and the select board may choose to ignore it. If the planning board doesn't is not recommending it tonight, you're likely not going to see the select board making that recommendation on their own.
Cheryl, not to put you on the spot, but do you think that you're gonna rescind the application? Is that a hard no? Because if it is, then all this discussion at this point is moot.
well, I would like to see it there and I would like to proceed with it, but I do not want to have unhappy neighbors. But I will point out it is in a business district, and whether it would be the campground that would come in there or another business, you're still going to have traffic through there. You're still going to have safety issues and things of that nature. So, if you're looking at that, then that piece of property really shouldn't be zoned as a business in the first place, if you're not going to say that a business can really be there. But, like I said, if it could go through, I'm very interested in the piece of property. If it's not a lot of wetlands, it's a lot of wetlands, the whole thing's mute anyways. But I certainly don't want unhappy neighbors, and that is never a goal of ours for sure, because that does not make for good relationships in the area. And we strive to have acceptance of the people around us and have us accept them accept us just the same mutually. And it don't sound like that can happen there.
Wow,
May I just have one point, please, to rebut?
good.
So this is if it is a business district, that's fine. And the nature of most businesses is that they're not residences for people, or that they don't have occupants living in them. And that's really the difference. This is a 24-hour, like a hotel or an apartment. This is not a business that opens at 9 and closes at 5 or even 10 at night. So it's the nature of bringing a number of people who are living on that property.
Sure. Thanks. I think that we should, make a motion to, either revise the map or to change the matrix for Route 1D.
Just for clarity,
Yes,
would this be a change aimed for the November warrant?
sure, why not?
So just as a reminder, with recommendation that's being made, I'll see if I'll have to talk to the select board, see if I can get that on their August 22nd agenda, because if they're busy at that time, then they might not be on November, but I will have to see in short what I can do on that.
Can I ask probably a dumb question? Everything up there on the hill is residence. How can that one section be labeled as a business?
So Again,
No, the whole,
well,
oh yeah, there is a little exception.
yeah, so
Little-
again, actually, I might have to stand up and. Because I just don't have the map in front of me. So-
It's like visible from a neighbor's house, time you cleared it out, and you've got neighbors all the way around.
Right. So. And it's probably not gonna be that well visible. For the recording. I cannot speak for the person who made the zoning districts in 2005 or the committee that made these decisions, unfortunately. I do see what you're talking about where. They edge out so many of the residents and keep them in the rural district. And I would guess, the reason they kept these ones in the commercial district is because they do have that connection to Route 1, whereas the ones that are edged out and kept in the rural district aren't touching Route 1 at all. That is my guess. I can't speak for anyone who was here in 2005. And this is just the map, the zoning map we've had for 18 years. That's all I can really say to it.
How often does that get revised?
How often does this get revised?
2005 was the last time.
2005 was 2005 is when a big overhaul happened to this ordinance. I
How
think
would you go about going to get that changed again?
That's
very
what we're doing right now. I
well.
mean, it's a big process.
Yeah, I said
Yeah,
it
we're
earlier.
changing it from
So-
commercial to commercial, not commercial back to residential
Back-
either.
So yes, the change would be working with the planning board or a different group. So that a recommendation is made to the select board to put it on a warrant article, hold a town meeting to change it.
Over 10 acres.
So,
It's not a very big area.
and I'm not too familiar with it, but I'd have to check with the state. I know there's some negative thoughts on spot zoning where usually they want to have more than just one lot, but I think that might be one lot as its own special district, but I don't want to get into the weeds of it. As I said earlier, we're already well into this application and I think this conversation you have is a bigger one that I don't think we're going to be able to wrap up tonight, unfortunately.
Can I just point out one thing? The woman in the striped shirt, I'm sorry, I forget your name,
Gail Henry.
Gail?
Gail.
Anyway, I just wanted to let you know that in this district as it is right now, bed and breakfasts, lodging and boarding houses and hotels or motels are allowed, so. You know. So it's already permitted. Okay, I don't know what to do.
So
Yeah,
here's
awesome.
how I'm seeing this right now. I don't see how it makes any sense in particular to have disallowed campground in the Route 1P zone in the first place. It seems sort of an arbitrary choice.
Except that B allows all the setbacks to be smaller, and that's a problem with campgrounds.
So
It's a conflict.
understood.
Yeah.
We have some terms about campgrounds that are on page 10.6, which cover 10.6. Am I getting that right? Yes. Which have all kinds of layout restrictions on them. There's also a requirement for screening. A lot of the concerns that have been raised tonight are covered by the rules that we already have in place for the campgrounds. I think that the size of the site and the nature of the site having wetlands on it makes it really difficult to get the RV park of a viable size to get positioned in there, especially after you have to have a leach field put in. Cheryl, maybe in Tennessee, you're allowed to just do a holding tank and then pump it out periodically. That's really frowned upon in this state. You pretty much always have to put in a leach field and infiltrate your black water out of the tank. So that's going to take up more space on the lot, proportional to how many lots you have.
Right, no, we have a leach field as well. I mean,
Oh,
we have
okay.
holding tanks and a leach field.
Okay.
We got 7 acres and it sits 15 sites and the sites only sit on about an acre of that, actually, acre and a half.
Um. I'm sympathetic to the neighbors and their wish for the development to not happen. But if it's not an RV park, it's going to be something else. Someone's gonna buy that spot. It's in a prime location on Route
Oh,
1.
McDonald's or Taco Bell, you wanna go that route?
I mean,
Business that closes at a decent time
Yeah.
is what we're looking
Alright.
at.
That would
In
bring
our
jobs to
residential neighborhood.
Waldeboro.
Alright.
Do the taxes go up on that property when you put all those RV sites and all that work into it?
I had a question relative to the concerns of the neighbors, which is legitimate. What are the kind of things that would be acceptable there, just as a comparison to an RV park that these issues will exist? I mean, no matter what's in there, zoning wise, you're gonna have traffic, you're gonna have all these other issues. What could go in there?
The dog
You
park.
just said something that closes at a
A dog
decent
park.
time, a
Wonderful.
business
The
that
whole
has a
town's
normal
been
closing
asking
time.
for a dog
The
park.
whole town's a dog park.
Okay,
If you open
all right, everyone,
Wants to do what he wants
so-
to do.
He's the property.
A lot of-
owner, obviously.
okay. The side conversations and the back and forth, all that can be handled once this is all addressed. So,
We're only
to the
6
board.
people.
well, to the board, the question is whether a recommendation will be made to the select board to put a warrant article. There is no obligation. It is what you have based on what you've heard tonight.
Could you, Max, I'm a little confused, explain what that actually means, what is exactly what you just said? What does that entail?
one of us will make a motion.
Right.
Probably to change the matrix in the land use ordinance to allow campgrounds in Route 1B zone.
And it's not beholden to, it goes to the select board.
Yep, and then they have to vote on it, and then it goes to the warrant, and then the
Okay,
whole town. has to
So
vote
we're
on it.
not, okay.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
I get you.
This board may choose to do that motion. You are not required to do so. And then if you choose to make the recommendation, the select board will make that same exact decision, and they may choose not to do the recommendation. And if both of you decide to pass a motion saying you want a change of some kind, there will be a warrant article for November, which goes through a public hearing process, and we would put a written notice out. And even if all of that happens, Cheryl would then still have to come back for the actual planning board review.
Why are you looking at me?
The whole place is a dog park. Why would you wanna be here?
Okay.
Come on.
So we leave it as is, or we put something forward to the select board of some nature, and then it gets voted yes or voted no.
Correct.
Um, You know, the one thing about this as a business in that neighborhood is that it really is it's not all year as a business, you know? It's-
Yeah, but can you change it?
Months.
Once it's in there, it can be changed.
There used to be cabins there long ago and
Well,
nothing
not,
but
not if
drunks
we set
and
up,
addicts
not if
lived
we
there.
set up conditions. You mean that it could become a permanent
Yeah,
kind of thing? Well, that's a very good point, but that could be set up as a condition. So. Condition for approval.
That's all right. We'll get to the selectmen next. We'll bring more people.
All right,
Official
we're
motion.
gonna have to vote. Are you
Yeah,
ready?
if someone, there would have to be an official motion on that.
All right.
So wait, are we a quorum?
Yes.
Yes.
We are.
Who's Jeff? We need a.
Like, where did it say
Okay,
David's real?
I'm gonna make a motion to change the matrix for zone 1B on page 6-9 to reflect the same processes that are used for 1A.
Everything?
No, just for the campgrounds. campground small, campground large.
Okay, so we're not asking for medical marijuana clinics,
Nope.
methadone clinics.
We can
Just
burn those
campground.
bridges when we get to them. That's the motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
I think we have to look at the setback issues.
Isn't that individual to each development? If they can't meet the setback requirements for the zone,
They're
then
so little, and B, it's only 25 feet for front and side and rear is 15 feet.
But, sorry, the recommendation was, you're not changing the actual zone that it is in, you're just saying that in
You're
Route
just-
one A,
Putting that use in the,
Route one B, campgrounds would be allowed, correct?
correct.
I know. But,
They don't have to go along with them.
oh, it's a hybrid, or maybe everyone's confusing that. For a campground, we need more generous setbacks.
Oh, Facebook's in there.
It's true.
Yeah, I was about to say, for procedure, the motion was made, it was seconded. Just brief discussion right now.
We can't discuss it right now?
No, brief discussion. So you probably raised your point on the setback.
Max, where am I gonna find the setbacks between zone 1A and 1B?
It's right at the
Just-
bottom of that matrix. The
Yeah.
third-
At the end of the matrix?
Just mentions that would be page 6-18.
Perfect, thank you.
That would be for structures.
So it's a 100-foot setback versus a 25-foot setback.
Yep.
On the front sides are 30 and 15.
So in my mind, it's not as simple as moving that word over. It's
You still have to have the screening though.
Yeah, but 25 feet of screening is way different than 100 feet of screening.
It's different.
Where's the screening?
Well, and you are talking RVs rather than a building too. So I mean, as far as your setback, I mean, you're not having to put all that parking there because the parking's right with the RVs.
I think you got 100, it's not 10.
Actually, it's not 10-4 in my book.
So
Okay,
it's paragraph 10.7.1.
shoreline zoning, so I've got it.
Earlier, the only difference between A and B is the campgrounds.
No, there are a number of differences.
There are others.
Route one A has some things that are not allowed in Route one B. One of them is the campgrounds. And then there's some setbacks and dimensional differences too.
Max, how can we deal with getting bigger setbacks if we change it this way? What's the mechanism?
It would be the same thing, an amendment to the land use ordinance. So same thing, a recommendation would be made.
So
Select
we're not
board-
gonna change it for all of B, all the businesses that go into the B zone. We're just gonna change it for certain types of businesses that go into the B zone.
It's gonna change it to a community.
that would be. Well, that would probably be one of the specific standards you're changing the language for then, but. When you're talking about changing their setbacks, like. What do you mean by that?
Well, I think 25 feet to the road is too close.
Is it different for residents than it is the businesses?
No, those setbacks are applicable to anyone, so there is no building, there's nothing supposed to be within that 25 feet.
Oh, because isn't a residence, you have to have it 200 feet from the road and 30 feet from all sides.
I hope it's not 200 feet, that's a.
I thought that was a new ordinance that was passed.
That wouldn't be, most people's property would not accommodate any house with those kind of setbacks. And if you put a setback for 100 feet, even on both sides, I don't remember the depth to this property there. Mr. Davis would know it, but if you're putting 100, you got to consider that property borders not only Main Street, but it borders Route 1. Consequently, you're talking 100 on both sides. That's 200 feet that you're taking.
I think it's
That
30 feet.
That 200 feet might have been talking about the road frontage, as in how much of the road has to be along the property line.
You sure it's not back?
Well, the setbacks
Cause
for,
on 220, we had a trailer that was less than 25 feet from the road, and when the new ordinance that I remember changed. It recommended 200 feet from the road and 30 feet from all abutting. Property lines to be able to build,
Well,
and
that's
you had to have 2.3 acres to build in Waldeboro.
that's
No.
way too much.
for the rural district, the road setback is 75 feet from the road, 30 feet from the sides,
30 feet,
30 feet from the sides.
so it's only
Side and
75
rear.
from the road,
For the rural district and the residential district, for Route 1A,
yeah.
that's 100 feet from the road, 30 feet from the side. And then Route 1B is 25 from the road, 15 from the side.
And then the campground ordinance has other setbacks and listed in it as well. Campsites or structures have to be located at least 50 feet from a property line and 100 feet from any residence on an abutting property.
That
So-
kind of takes away from that 10 acres, doesn't it?
Yeah, it provides screening to the neighbors. That's the intent there.
And doesn't allow for so many RVs either.
That'll be her problem if she decides to go forward and make a plan for the property.
So do you know if the property taxes go up to give any value to the town of Waldeboro for doing this?
That's all question that I'd have to ask Daryl, the tax assessor's agent. He's not in until Monday.
I mean, anytime you develop a property, it's going to
Yeah.
generate increased tax revenue for the town.
Right,
Yeah. All right,
Would you like to restate that?
So, yeah,
the
going.
motion,
Yeah, just going into the point of order here, the motion was made to. Allow campgrounds in Route 1 Commercial B. Brendan made the motion, Johnny seconded. Is there any further discussion amongst the board?
ready?
All those in favor? Yeah, all right. So. Again, I'll just be clear with the residents here. The next step would mean I'm going to talk with the select board, or I'm gonna talk with town manager. And see if the select board will be able to have this reviewed and considered. If they can't meet and then have this on the agenda, then it won't be on the November warrant. But if the select board does meet and then makes a similar recommendation, it will be on the November warrant. So just keep that in mind. I
Where do
think
we
the
look for that?
I'm sorry,
Where do we look for that, whether it's gonna be on the board or not?
I believe the next select board meeting is August 22nd. It's always the second and fourth Tuesday. The agendas are posted on the town website, I believe. The Thursday before that meeting, so you will see on there if this is a topic.
Right, but I'm saying after that meeting, will they put on another saying that it's going on in November?
What will happen is we have a required public hearing in about September that goes over all of the warrant articles. And so that would be a time for people to come and discuss that as well.
and rally the troops, Justin.
But again, I need to see if the select board even makes that recommendation first. They may not do it.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks, everybody, for your comments. I realize this was not the outcome that you wanted. Your concerns are noted. We have other things that we can do to help control what happens in the development of this site. We can put conditions on the approval, say, lights out at 9 o'clock or whatever. Do please come back and raise your concerns. The way this process will work is there are 2 more required meetings for the approval of this. At the final approval, the 3rd stage, there will be letters that go out to all the abutters, so you'll hear about it, you'll get a notice in the mail. And please come back, bring your concerns, and we'll try to make this development work for everybody as best we can.
Is how many feet for abutters? Abutters within X number of feet? Is there, do you know?
So
500?
How does that go?
when the notices are sent out,
Yeah,
so the way the process works is if we get a formal application, not a pre-application, an actual full plan, not a concept. Letters will go out to people who directly abut the property. So Jesse, up front here, you would get a letter in the mail along with anyone else, even across the street, you would get a letter. It won't go to every single person. I probably won't go to every single person in this room and the one who just left earlier. I can't help that. That's just the ordinance restriction we have. But along with that, we also put an advertisement in the Lincoln County News, similar to what we did for this pre-application. So
baby was awful small. Just about this big in the paper,
Yeah.
I have to
Don't
fit into the
worry,
rest of
Need a
the,
magnifying glass to find it in
Don't
there.
worry, Facebook has access to everybody.
Well, I'm sure you'll keep each other posted and,
Yep.
Yep. Well, actually, I really appreciate all your feedback.
Yep.
Is that the end of that issue?
It is.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Easy job, guys.
Have a good night, guys.
Thank you all for your time.
Thanks.
Good luck with your project.
Thank you.
All right. Leave minutes.
July 13th,
What?
July 13th minutes.
Oh.
That pre-application was quick.
So I.
Yeah, I really thought that was gonna go really fast and it didn't work out that way.
I have a question about minutes. There's a certain familiarity with the. Susan always used to use last names and you use all first names. Okay. And I don't care, but I was like, wait a minute, what's different about
And,
this?
and I can do that because I thought it was odd, but I was looking at. I didn't start with you guys. I started with Sylvania and they were using first names.
Uh-huh.
So I did, but I can use last names. That works for me.
Feel free to use Johnny for me. I prefer
You prefer John?
it. Yeah. I
Okay,
prefer
so what do you want? Now you
You
have.
know,
my
I'm just pointing it out. It's kind of like, huh, is this,
it. Yeah, I prefer it.
and it doesn't matter, Max, either way,
Nope, as long
consistency or anything.
as it's easy to follow.
This is much more lively than expecting when I agreed to do this. This is interesting, folks.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay, so the minutes, I thought they were splendid minutes. I didn't have any,
I'm on page 5. I don't have any notes so far.
Is there too much? Cause I sort of went with some of it.
It can be. When we talk about the land use ordinance, changes,
Mhm.
it could be useful in the future, I suppose, to have all of the discussion, but I don't know how necessary it is to track the back and forth, other than just like the conclusion of the discussion on the individual points. It'd save you a little work and still get the job done as far as documenting the meeting. Given that it is almost 8 o'clock and we have a deadline for getting stuff onto the warrant here that's rapidly approaching.
Yeah, we will talk about LD 2003 in a bit.
Yeah, I think we're running out of time to make a lot of these changes.
because we have to get it to the August select board meeting, is that why?
Yes.
Well. If you, I was actually gonna say. The LD 2003 changes are probably something we won't have ready because. What a lot of towns are doing now that we have actually been told we will be reimbursed by the state. Thank goodness. Yeah, thank goodness. Probably will have our attorney look at the changes. And
Oh.
that's gonna take some time as well, so.
Got it. Okay, perfect. That's good to know.
So might be better if we just have the LD 2003 changes for June or March, because that's when some primaries are gonna happen, because next year is election season, yay. So is it really that?
Can't wait.
Insane, Max.
I've got no notes on the minutes. I'll move to accept them as written.
I second it.
All those in favor? Aye. Ayes have it. So LD 2003, I guess, given the hour, do we want to just talk about this 1529 page with your stream protection definition?
Yeah, that was just being added in. It's not LD 2003 related, but that was just a point that was raised last time that we don't actually have a definition for
Gotcha.
data protection, even though it's elsewhere in the ordinance.
Great.
I think all we had left for LD 2003 were a bunch of definitions, and as I said,
There's
There- yeah.
definitions, studio definitions, there's workshop, is sales or retail, should that be part of that definition
Oh, we're talking about different definitions now. Okay,
on your stream protection 15-29? Just talks about what a workshop is, but only the place of work, or can you do retail out of there?
let's see. Stream and
This is this part of our passage.
28.
wait. I guess I'm confused now about the studio and everything. Oh, you're talking about, okay, I was just looking at stream protection.
Yeah.
Workshop, an artist, sculptor. A place for radio, television. And you're wondering if retail is included in that?
If someone's having a studio, or building on a studio, is there an automatic? Is that it? Is it implied that they can use it for retail?
No, retail is defined differently. And is a different use in the matrix.
Matt's question on number 5. Right, on roads.
Okay. Oh, right, yeah.
I was just curious, it's just for my own personal enrichment. It's a private, a vehicular access way serving more than 2 dwelling units, which is not proposed to be dedicated to the town. So that's someone owns that road?
Right, there's two different ways, either the property line goes to middle point of the private road, or there's a road association that's where it's like a public road,
Right.
but it's just owned by a private entity.
But hypothetically, if a citizen owned the road
Mhm.
and there were like 6 houses on that road,
Mhm.
what is incumbent upon him? What can he or she do with that road? That came up, this has come up a few times, like 6 years here.
Mhm.
And what is that? What was it?
It's an access question, really, because that's what happened with Controversy Lane and the
That's
solar
right,
farm.
That's
Yeah.
that's what I was thinking. And that was a big,
Yeah.
big mess.
I mean, if an individual owns it, they're responsible for maintaining it and then granting whatever access the other properties have. So the other properties say it's allowed for residential use and it's allowed for residential use, but the person who privately owns the road may say, I'm not allowing commercial use down there.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was.
So. We kind of stopped when we got to the definitions last time we were doing all this. And I was hoping we could just go through the LD 2003 definitions, but here we are, 10 minutes late.
And I didn't bring my copy.
Right,
Just try to grab one for me.
and I've got to get up at 500 hours.
So, and as I just said, I think with the time restraint we have, we kind of have to, LD 2003 doesn't have to be implemented until July of next year.
Right.
So it might be best to table, and if,
Do you want to review definitions on a Zoom meeting or something? Like one more meeting this month, or? I can't remember how many changes there are.
I mean, I'll resend a PDF that has it all. unless people want me to do printed versions.
Yeah, can you, why don't
Yeah.
you do that? and everybody just comment. You don't have it, if we're. fine with
PDF
the
is fine?
S's. Yeah,
Okay, I can do that.
Yeah, that's better.
Yeah, I can do that. And,
Sounds good.
okay,
all right. So I'll do that.
excellent.
The other point I wanted to make, this isn't an ordinance revision thing. This is just meeting for September. I will be on vacation that week. So I don't have any applications on the ready. I didn't know if people wanted to. If I do get something, we can still try and hold the meeting unless the board wants to not do the meeting or anything. So I'll let you know if we get anything, but I'm going to assume, and now that the ordinance doesn't have to be rushed to November for LD 2003, I'm going to assume if in September there is no application, cancel the meeting.
Well,
Sounds
you-
great.
Yeah, you.
I think we'll have one though.
Yeah.
We always seem to get one.
I'm gonna try to push it.
Oh, we'll know by 2 weeks before.
Yeah, 3 weeks before is usually the
Sure.
deadline.
Okay.
You definitely won't be here, Max, for that meeting.
I'll be in Standish.
Yeah, okay. But there are oftentimes some technical questions regarding the town, and if you're not here, wouldn't that gum up things, or would you have to put it off? I mean, there are some.
I can still
There
be,
are some.
We can't live without you, Max.
I can still be reached by email if there is an emergency. And when I say an emergency, I mean,
Right.
you better not take out my kayak.
No. I've been saying there's a certain nuance in these things that you seem to know. and can-
Yes.
And can navigate, that's all I'm saying, but you enjoy your vacation.
Or we could move it a week off,
Yeah.
the meeting.
Right, you can reschedule it if you want. That's something that we'll just do in emails. If I do get a request for an application, I'll give it to the
We'll
board.
see what happens.
How'd you like to do things?
All right.
All right.
I have one other very quick item. I found a very interesting white paper about short-term rental ordinances.
Oh.
I had a long conversation
Yeah,
about
yeah,
that last
yeah,
week
yeah.
or last month when I said that I didn't really know how to even go about doing this. And this guy, he has a business basically providing a service to municipalities
Yes.
for regulation. And so he wrote this white paper sort of as a way of defining the problem, but also as a way of providing his solution to it.
Pictures?
There's not a lot of pictures. It's about 20 pages long. He has a very nice organized way of sort of defining what you want the ordinance to do and then suggesting mechanisms to achieve that goal.
Yeah.
So my question is, how do we? Oh, great.
That was what
We talked about this last time.
Yeah, that
right?
was the one my coworker did to just show what housing is in the area.
Fantastic.
Sorry that it's in black and white. Printer always loves to be this way to me.
Totally fine.
Yeah, that's where I wanted to highlight. Yeah, I wanted to highlight Waldeboro going from very affordable to not so affordable. And that is 2016 to 2021 information. The 2022 information
Wow.
will just make you more
I think
depressed.
this is as good as your friends.
Oh, it's
Oh.
it's a totally different topic.
Yeah,
Oh,
Yeah.
very different. This was more to just show
Right.
the housing that is going on in the area.
Oh.
And it shows, I think Waldeboro has about
Okay.
2% of short-term rentals in
Right.
this town. But no, what Brendan's talking about is very different.
If
And
you
I'd be
could
more interested in that.
copy that
Well-
And give it to Max to copy, because I'd like a printed copy.
Yeah, sure. I'll send it to
That
you.
would be very
Yeah,
useful.
that'd be great.
My question about
Yeah.
this though was, in order to keep this copacetic with the accessibility rules. Not accessibility. It's a different word that starts with A. No, the reporting requirements. I can't remember what the term is that they use. It's Maine something act, municipal something. You know, we're required to do these meetings in public. I can't invite them.
access.
Okay.
There we
So,
go.
yeah,
There we go.
accessibility, I was close. Can we just have that email conversation? Can I send this out to everybody? Is there
Yeah,
something I'm
you-
supposed to do to?
You can send it out to everyone. I mean, we're talking about it right now publicly that
Right,
that email is gonna happen. and
Right.
If someone wants to see what you're about to send out, then it'll be in my office if someone wants to see it.
okay, great.
Cool.
All right, then, let's,
Where is this person based? Where's his office based? Let's see. It has a bit-
I want to say it was Mid-Atlantic somewhere,
Yeah.
yeah.
Good info.
Yeah, he has a lot of different perspectives in there. I think it's useful.
Very, very useful,
Yeah,
very useful.
I would like to move to adjourn this meeting.
I would like to second it.
Yeah.
Great. All in favor?